Hi, Massive D here. I wanted to make this video for a very long time, but I also wanted to wait a bit until my YouTube skills improve, as I want it to be special. I think that this video in particular will be one of the most important Elite Dangerous videos that I ever make. I personally believe that mastering the navigation of a star system is the single most important thing a beginner can do when starting this fantastic game. Elite Dangerous is not the type of game that holds your hand. Once you log into the game for the very first time, you'll find yourself in a tiny spacefaring craft and the mind-shattering vastness of the galaxy in front of you. Properly understanding the mechanics of where you are and where you need to go will tremendously boost your confidence as a star pilot and help you figure out more efficiently which direction you should take your journey towards. This video may not be useful to a veteran commander, although you still may learn a trick or two that you weren't aware of before. However, if you or your mate just started playing this game, this video should make your or their first steps into the unknown a little less overwhelming. This tutorial will include mastering your navigational tools such as filters to find objectives quickly, finding unidentified signal sources, escaping situation when your hyperspace target is obstructed, interdictions, how to escape them unharmed, using system map to find materials, correct way of approaching your target, correct way of landing on planets, understanding gravitational lines and what sort of information they can tell you, making good use of navigation beacon within a system, using bookmarks to your advantage, improving your speed settings to gain an advantage, finding entrance to Coriolis Station quickly, using objects such as planets and moons for gravitational braking, and much more. For this very special video that also celebrates my channel reaching 400 subscribers, I wanted to visit a special place. Therefore today, we will be exploring the one and only solar system. And here we are, greeted with its most majestic view, the beauty of the blue marble. A magical place in which, for all we know, may be the very first time that the universe asked itself in the form of a sentient monkey, where the fuck am I? And how do I get to Detroit? As we park ourselves next to planet Earth, let's open up our navigation/targeting panel, also known simply as the left panel. We can immediately see that the list of things within this average size system is simply daunting. Remember how big your eyes got the first time you opened up this panel? Yeah. Not to worry though. Filter to the rescue. This is probably my favorite tool in the entire game, as it lets you filter off the clutter presented to you within the system. In the default state, when no values are selected, the panel will display every single thing your sensors can pick up. But if you are looking for something specific, you should make a habit of filtering off stuff that is irrelevant to your current session. For example, when hunting unidentified signal sources, I like to leave only two things visible: signal sources, duh, and stars, so I can monitor my distance from the system star and make sure that I stay in the sweet spot of deep space, where unidentified signal sources have an increased chance to spawn. Let's start our study of the filter tool with points of interest. If you are a bounty hunter or a miner, this is how you will find resource extraction sites. If you are a gun for hire, this is how you will find conflict zones. And if carrying passengers is your cup of tea, this is how you will find tourist beacons. As you can see, solar system is packed with them. However, points of interest also includes stuff like mission givers or this capital ship. What could possibly be more interesting than that? Let's go check it out. This is the Farragut class Federation-built battle cruiser. David Glasgow Farragut was a flag officer in the 1800s and the very first Rear Admiral, Vice Admiral, and Admiral in the United States Navy. Today mostly remembered for his victorious order at the Battle of Mobile Bay, which pretty much was "damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead." In his honor, US Navy had two separate classes of destroyers named after him in 1934 and 1958, and several individual ships named USS Farragut, so the man was a total badass. And I find quite fitting that the Federation decided to name their capital class ship line after him. As you can see here, even though I promised myself I'd be super serious during this video, I immediately start dicking around with this capital ship. I've actually flown a Corvette through the gap here and got pretty much inside the ship, but since the Imperial cutter is roughly the size of an average American, I get stuck. Since capital ships are not just decorations, but are in fact active NPC units and will shoot to kill if made angry, I decide not to push my luck here and get on with the rest of my tutorial. Absolute masterpiece of a ship, isn't she? But moving on, the next tool we are going to explore is the system map. In this view, we can inspect the celestial bodies a little bit closer. But that's not all. We can also see what sort of politics are going around within the system. As Solar System is the homeworld for the Federation, on the left information bar we can see that it's directly controlled by Zachary Hudson. We can see that the government type is democracy, which tells us that this may not be the best place to, for example, acquire slaves. Federation doesn't troll like that, and it's forbidden to own slaves within their systems, unlike the Empire ones. We can also see that the allegiance for the system is Federation. This is key information if you are participating in power play as an agent for the Empire, because going into Federation-owned systems is where you find rival agents, and killing them will grant you merits with the Empire. Other things that gives us information is, for example, that the controlling faction in the system is Mother Gaia, which tells us a few things. 1. They will be the ones controlling the police forces within the system. And if you have a mission per se that tells you to assassinate a person within Solar System, and upon finding the person you notice that he belongs to the Mother Gaia faction, you might want to think twice if you really want to do it, as you will lose reputation with the system's controlling faction. And that may not be very useful if you are, for example, getting passenger missions from them. Few more things to keep an eye for within this information bar. For example, Solar System is currently in boom state, which means that they are doing great. This tells us that if we are searching for mission exclusive rewards, here we would have a bigger chance of getting them. And one last thing, we can see that the security level here is high, which tells us that if we are looking for outposts to assault for outpost specific rewards, here we will find high security ones. Now, looking at these planets and moons, we can see that some of them have this blue aura icon thingy around them, right? This tells us that we can land on them, to mine for materials, look for crashed satellites, alien relics, geysers or geezers if you're Obsidian Ant, and all sorts of interesting things. Speaking of materials, as you can see, when I select a celestial body, the information on the left side changes and now shows data relevant only to it. This is very useful if you want to be a miner, as inspecting things like planet rings and asteroid belts will tell you which of them are metal rich or even pristine, giving you much bigger and much more valuable yield results. And if you are hunting materials for engineers, by inspecting landable planets, you can easily figure out which one of them can give you the stuff you need. For example, one of Saturn's moons, Tethys, has an abundance of sulfur, carbon, iron, nickel, and phosphorus. Now these materials are common, however, if you watched my previous video about how to level up with engineers quickly, you will immediately recognize that all of these can be used for power leveling, so they are incredibly useful and you can find all 5 of them at once. As a cherry on the cake, this moon also has a good amount of zirconium, arsenic, tungsten, and tellurium, which are all used by engineers for certain upgrades. This is probably one of the most useful rocks I ever found, and it's a perfect segue into the next trick that I want to show you. And that is using bookmarks to your advantage. Let's bookmark Tethys and open up the galaxy map. Now let's go into the bookmarks bar and scroll down until we see our new addition. Let's rename it to something that we can easily recognize later, for example, material-abundance of commons. Now, next time when I need a lot of common materials, I can simply fire up the galaxy map, find this entry, and plot my course to it, which will save me so much time over the long run. Now, since that's all said and done, let's say goodbye to the menacing death machine in front of us, and let's go visit Tethys. This mid-sized Saturn's moon is roughly 1060 kilometers or 658 miles across, and was discovered by Giovanni Domenico Cassini in 1684, and is named after the Titan Tethys of the Greek mythology. It's roughly 4,500 light seconds away from Earth, which translates into around 1.3 million kilometers, or 800,000 miles, and traveling to it almost feels as long as the road you take to visit your mother-in-law. But let's not despair, as there are a few interesting things that we can learn from this journey. Let me show you an option setting that can actually give you advantage over your opponents in combat, and it's incredibly useful in managing your speed while traveling in Supercruise, especially if you are using mouse and keyboard or gamepad to play Elite Dangerous. Go into Options and select Controls. Select Fly Throttle and look for a line that reads throttle increments. By default, this is set to continuous, but what you really want to set it to is 25%. This means that instead of holding throttle up or down, you can now click to increase or decrease your speed by 25%. If you master the clicks, especially in combat, you can change your speed from full to 0 to match target speed to reverse without ever looking at the speed meter, which will make you change speed more quickly and more responsively, and let your eyes concentrate on combat in front of you. With enough practice, changing speed will become second nature to you, similar to changing gears while driving a car. But let's see how it helps us during Supercruise. We are approaching our target at full speed, and you can see that the ETA timer is counting down. A lot of people are confused by this timer, as it sometimes stands still and sometimes counts down. So let me try to explain how it works. When you have large distances and unimaginable speeds, physics gets very sensitive. We are currently traveling several times the speed of light, using Alcubierre's warp drive theory, which has been proven mathematically, and it's not breaking any laws of physics. The thing is, if a single penny was traveling at 90% the speed of light and would hit a solid object, the energy released upon impact would be as much as 40 atomic bombs that we dropped on Hiroshima. And if an object the size of, I don't know, this Imperial Cutter would hit a planet or a moon traveling at several hundred times the speed of light, well, let's just say that the energy released upon impact would become the brightest object in the universe for a short while, surpassing the luminosity of even the brightest quasar. So in order to make sure that rando pilots don't accidentally wipe out our galaxy, computers on our ships calculate ETA very carefully, gradually decreasing our ship's speed while we get closer and closer to the object we are approaching, making it seem that the timer is frozen, but in reality, it's an effect of our current speed being slower than it was last second. To engage this autopilot mode, when the timer clocks 7 seconds left, we are going to click down our speed by 25%, getting into the blue zone on our speed meter. Once you do that, the timer will tick down and freeze on 6 seconds, and there is no way you will ever overshoot your target this way. Now, there is one more very important physics phenomena we need to be aware of, as it is implemented into the game and affects you in some scenarios during Supercruise, but can actually be used to your advantage. Do you see those large bluish rings being generated from the center of our target that look like ripples? Those are actually coming off Saturn and indicate the size of the planet's gravity well. Now look what happens when I dive directly into Saturn's gravity well. It slows and bogs me down considerably. So if you have accelerated too much and the ETA timer is counting down below 6 seconds, you know that you will overshoot your target. However, you can use the stopping power of a planet's or moon's gravity well to slow you down, which in real life is called gravitational braking and is used by NASA and other space agencies to slingshot satellites all over the solar system. Have you ever noticed while traveling in Supercruise that a random slow down message pops up seemingly for no reason? That actually means that you just nipped a celestial body's gravity well.